Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only, Silver the Hedgehog here, and once again, I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic and the Black Knight for the Nintendo Wii. So, last time, we did somehow manage able to explore into not only Deep Woods, but in addition to going back into Camelot Castle, and on top of that, we also did manage to explore into Titanic Plain. Now, as far as the forms of Deep Woods as far as I'm concerned, that we did somehow already accomplish 4 missions there, and then meanwhile when it comes to Camelot Castle, we did only tackle through 2 more missions, and of course, speaking of 2 missions, is that we also tackled through 2 missions in Titanic Plain. Like, for instance though, in Deep Woods, we've already taken care of the forms of the next boss fight against with the forms of Sir Lancelot, in some cases Shadow, and then meanwhile we've also taken on Sir Gawain, or in some cases Knuckles. So ultimately though, we've only got 1 member left when it comes to the 3 Knights of the Round Table, which appears to be Sir Percival, which that'll be a topic for a later time. So for now, today for this video is that we are about to be heading over into the next level, which is going to be taking place in Crystal Cave. So because of that, well, as far as I'm aware, we still need to rescue all these townspeople from the clutches of the dragon, of course. So ultimately, though, it's about the fact that we can able to actually do some more combat, and in addition to that, try to do some occasional platforming here and there. But it's not going to be until specifically later on, though, that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on platforming involved. So anyway, so before we dive into the actual mission itself, which appears to be go for the goal, reach the goal basically, so I just need to make sure I need to equip certain accessories and what have you, so I think this should be all good, all things considering for, and let's go ahead and get started with the forms of the first mission in Crystal Cave. So yeah, for the most part, everything else checks out there, basically. Apart from the fact that, well, one thing I totally forgot to mention about this is, though, ever since in the last weekend or so, for whatever reason, my Nintendo Wii decides able to actually randomly triggers an error has occurred message from out of nowhere, which I was like, are you kidding me? Although I will get into more details about that, assuming of course if we're about to be continue playing for this, for the sake of defaults this weekend. So, anyways though, so yeah, speaking of which though, it's about the fact that for those of you probably wondering, yes, today's the day is the forms of the 30th of August today, in some cases in 2025 today. Well, conveniently enough, we've only just got about 2 more days left until we're about to be approaching into September. So as a result though, it's about the fact that for my expectations when it comes to September is going to be immediately going to be high, especially considering about the fact that we are still practically hoping for trying to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, obviously, and so much to the point, the fact that this could be a perfect opportunity we can able to potentially try to say that once we're done with the forms of every aspect in terms of Sonic and the Black Knight, that I'm sure it will be a possibility we can able to actually tackle for yet another Let's Play in terms of the forms of the weekends department, just before whenever we get into the forms of, well, the Mario's 40th anniversary celebration coming up. So anyway, it is also reassuring about this too, is about the fact that for what I can gather, that recently during the forms of it yesterday, that Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, specifically, a open network test has already been available since yesterday. Well, mind you, I haven't really tested this out for myself, but that's just mainly because I was still basically waiting for that game to be finally releasing for PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and even Xbox One version specifically, and then eventually in the near future for Nintendo Switch 2, which I suppose that'll be a topic for a later time as well. So because of that though, now as far as I'm aware, about the fact that out of a coincidence as far as I'm aware, that did you guys know for the fact that since in 2 days ago, that we've already got a chance able to actually experience Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch 2 edition, plus Star-Crossed World. At this point in time is about the fact that we've only just got about a couple of games left in terms of release schedules between, you know, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, as well as Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and on top of that, Kirby Air Riders, and much more surprises to join at some point in the later time. So, but I digress. And speaking of which though, I also found out that Nintendo Music app have recently added a whopping 91 more tracks from the likes of Kirby and the Forgotten Land on that particular application, which I'm guessing is probably due to the fact that, you know, with the Switch 2 edition of that game has already came out, so that'll be a good coincidence to able to actually realize about the fact that trying to able to recap on, you know, the most amazing Kirby games ever made. So, and, so much to the point for the fact that I was originally trying to able to actually play that game on my own time for trying out the forms of the Switch 2 version, but I might have to wait on that for a little longer, especially noticeable because we just want to get these games finished in terms of Let's Plays departments between both not only Super Mario Party, which at this point in time, that Maxi is now going to be moving on into the next couple of modes for the motion control islands, such as, for instance, you know, Toad's Item Factory, and in addition to Paratrooper Flight School as well, and maybe potentially, though, about the fact that when it comes to any other minigame modes as well, and of course, not to mention, though, with all that Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive content, ranging from, you know, Bowser Live, Carnival Coaster, as well as 2 other rule sets when it comes to Mario Party mode, and etc, basically. So anyways, that pretty much does it for this mission right here, and let's see how the results actually turns out. Oh, nice, 4 stars, not too shabby. But also I just realized I somehow managed to accidentally equip the wrong accessory, because as far as I'm aware, my star count on my playstyle does not increase at all. So because of that though, that's totally my mistake right there. And oh, would you look at that, we've actually come across into Arthur's Legend 3. So logically though, we've only got about 2 Arthur's Legends left. So because of that, I'm not entirely sure how to get them exactly. In fact, let me know in the comments down below of how you're able to actually get Arthur's Legends 4 as well as 5 especially, but that'll be for a later time as well. So anyway, so that pretty much does it for going for the goal mission. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next mission, which appears to be the special challenge, rescue the townspeople, which as a result, something tells me about the fact that we're about to be going around in a loop section, much like the forms of how it does it on some missions, like specifically, the majority of the forms of some missions in Sand Oasis from Sonic and the Secret Rings, likely, for example though, trying to break 5 jars, and on top of that, trying to collect certain amount of rings and defeat certain amount of enemies. So as a result though, we have to go around in a loop, because as you can tell, there are a lot of split paths that we can able to go into for the sake of this mission. Like, for instance though, in order to able to actually free those townspeople, we need to able to try to control our sword, and then as a result you have to directly try to direct the light right at the crystal itself in order to able to break them free. So as a result though, I think you have to do it for about 5 times. It doesn't really matter what townspeople you might able to rescue with, so much to the point, the mission won't end until specifically once you rescue 5 of those townspeople specifically. So it doesn't really matter what crystals you go after, so yeah, it's entirely up to you basically. So but anyway, and it's also reassuring about this too, is about the fact that, speaking of which, in terms of the forms of Nintendo games related, that you probably already realized about the fact that since in about a couple of days back, you do realize about the fact that Nintendo in Japan has recently released Hello Mario application for specifically in Japan, both on Nintendo Switch alongside with mobile phone devices. And you can also play that game on the Switch 2, despite the fact that it doesn't seem able to have any of those specific improvements over Switch 1, so it's basically plays very identical. But aside from all that stuff though, if you ever played that particular or try out Hello Mario, if you're younger kids out there, obviously though is about the fact that we must warn you, that game was only being playable on handheld mode, just trying to able to replicate the forms of iPhones or iPads or anything else like that. So I can possibly understand why that game is not playable on TV mode, because aside from all that stuff though, you can also use buttons, but all it does is basically just gives you some random sound effects here and there, and that's all there is to it. So as a result, yeah, the game is only playable on handheld mode, both on Switch 1 or Switch 2. So because of that though, yeah, it's always worth noting for, because aside from all that stuff though, unlike any other Nintendo Switch games, or even nowadays with Nintendo Switch 2 stuff here and there, obviously though is about the fact that we do have multitude of methods to able to experience certain games in particular. So, but I digress. So, And it is also reassuring about this too, is about the fact that I wasn't really sure if I was trying to explain about this clearly, but I do know for certain for one thing in mind is about the fact that one of those games in particular, called Hello Kitty and Friends Freeze Tag Party, did somehow announce for Nintendo Switch, and is about to due out at some point on the 6th of November in 2025, so I've got nothing else to say about this, I guess. So, no matter what though, we can pretty much expect to believe for the fact that it's still not long now until we're about to be approaching on to September, and it's especially noticeable concerning for the fact that we haven't got that long either in regards to the forms of, you know, trying to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, and on top of that, the game's release of not only Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and in addition to that, Pac-Man World 2 Repack, and much more really. So, yeah, I got nothing else to add. So, anyway, as you can tell, we're now moving on to the next mission, which involves around defeating enemies. So as a result, we need to defeat 50 of them before we progress. So because of that, though, nothing else I can really say about this, I guess. So, oh, and also, as far as I'm aware, unlike the forms of how it does it in Sonic and the Secret Rings, where basically, though, depending on what stage you're in, you're able to actually hear the vocal theme song during the forms of it in some stages. Like, for instance, though, in Sand Oasis, you're able to actually hear Let It Speed Mended, whilst in Journey Forms of in Evil Foundry, you're able to actually hear the Palace Who Finds the... Well, I don't know what the actual song is called exactly, but I do know for certain for one thing about the fact that that song might be felt a bit or sound a bit familiar to you if you obviously used to watch Commander by 456 Let's Plays back in the 2010s era, which even then though, you guys should probably already know what I'm talking about, especially concerning with all that, you know, die-hard Sonic fans, such as myself. So anyway, oh jeez, I'm almost gonna be close to death right there, because there are a couple of times though about the fact that, like I said before, sometimes the motion controls can be a bit hit and miss sometimes, unlike the forms of how it does it on some Wii games in particular, that it does manage to work flawlessly, like, you know, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and you get the idea for this point. So because of that though, and luckily I did somehow manage to survive in the final stretch of this mission, so everything else checks out there, and somehow I've only got 3 stars, which I'm honestly fine with. So as a result though, we can now reach our next title, which appears to be Hardy Squire. So as a result, we can now able to actually get the ring bonus, and in addition to attack step. So yeah, everything else checks out there. So yeah, let's open up the next bunch of items, ranging from daisies, and in addition to that particular armor right there. So yeah, that pretty much does it for the majority of those missions in Crystal Cave.
The appointed time has passed.
Yeah, don't remind me. You've been waiting here the whole time? Sorry about that. Good news, everyone's safe.
Thank you. And sorry about tricking you.
Huh?
You have shown courage, strength, and compassion.
Huh? Then...
I shall show you how to blunt the power of Excalibur. 'Cause you're a true knight.
Yes! I see. So I have to defeat the Knights of the Round Table and collect the sacred swords?
Yes, the 3 sacred swords, combined with your Caliburn, should dispel the power of immortality that protects him.
Sounds like a walk in the park.
We'll see about that.
Hey, come on! Isn't it about time you gave me a little credit?
The remaining knight, Percival, is the Knight of the Grail. She's as strong as she is noble. One mistake could be your last.
Don't worry! I've got one of the great sacred swords.
Of course. It's about time you figured that out.
I'm gonna make this look easy. She won't know what hit her. I've gotten pretty used to you, too.
That is exactly what I told you not to do.
Fare thee well, brave knight, chosen one of Caliburn.
Okay then, so we can now able to actually access to some more missions in the previous stages, plus the new stage, which appears to be Molten Mine. So suffice to say, we can now able to actually get into the next goal, which appears to be defeating Sir Percival, which is going to be the toughest of the three to fight against, but I'm sure enough though about the fact that we're able to try to figure something out once we're able to dive into Molten Mine. So because of that though, it's going to be taking place somewhere in a lava environment, so either way, so let's go and hop into this stage basically. So anyway, I've also found it's a little bit baffling still for the fact that every nowadays when it comes to Bandai Namco, as far as I'm aware, that they can't be bothered able to actually decide to bring back Miss Pac-Man, since about the fact that, that Pac-Mom is now replacing her due to the forms of, illegal reasons, or because of the forms of legal issues. So because of that though, and as far as I'm aware, there's this company called GCC, which obviously though, it's hard for me to explain personally, but I do know for certain for one thing is about the fact that, well, it's basically like Pac-Man, but in female counterparts called Miss Pac-Man, which is a bit difficult to explain, because even then though, it has been quite a while since I actually last mentioned something related to Pac-Man related, up until specifically though, once the, Pac-Man World 2 repack is going to be on its way. So, and I suppose, for the most part, that's as far as I can try to discuss upon on things, sadly. But I do know for certain for one thing in mind, when it comes to the forms of, Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 edition, plus Star-Crossed World for Nintendo Switch 2, that obviously does about the fact I'm pretty sure you're able to actually access the forms of the story levels once you're able to dive into your main file, as long as about the fact that you do need to complete the majority of the first world at first, just like the forms of how it does it in when you're trying to able to actually access to Donkey Kong Adventure DLC when it comes to Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So because of that though, but only for the fact that, well, obviously though, in Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is like a tactical RPG and stuff like that, so yeah, you can get the idea for this point. So, of course, I do need to take out these little, enemies here before I decide able to give a bunch of rings to that particular townspeople onto that rail grinding right there. So, yeah, as far as I'm aware, though, is about the fact that this place is filled to the brim with a lot of, like, interesting, obstacles to go through. Like, for instance, there's rail grinding, which, thankfully, though, unlike the forms of how it does it in Sonic and the Secret Rings, you're not able to actually go from rail to rail. You have to tilt the Wii Remote in a corresponding direction in order to able to actually just go from rail to rail. Whilst this time around, though, since that we're going to be using our nunchuck with ourselves, basically, though, you can just simply tilt the control stick left or right. So yeah, that's the way I like it, especially because sometimes, though, the motion controls in Secret Rings can be hit and miss sometimes, still. But regardless of such, though, is about the fact that some people seem to always complain about how finicky motion controls can be sometimes when it comes to likely for the majority of the third-party supportive games sometimes, whilst unlike the first-party supportive titles, obviously it works flawlessly most of the time, so... Oh yeah, let's get into the forms of that little, sidestepping wall segment right there. Very similar to the forms of how it does in Sonic and the Secret Rings, you can either just go left or right. However, here's the catch though, in this game specifically, if you walk a bit too fast, obviously though, Sonic will, no matter what though, will attempt to slip up, but thankfully you can able to get back up again thanks to Caliburn as a sword. So because of that though, although unlike in Sonic and the Secret Rings, that if you get hit by a hazard, while you're trying to able to actually scale for that particular wall walking, basically though, there is actually a little helpful horizontal bar to able to actually give you some bit of recovery once you try to go back up again. Whilst there are a couple of times though about the fact that without that you die instantly. Whilst in here though, that if you don't manage to recover in time, then you die automatically because it's all about the forms of precisioning and stuff like that. So yeah, I suppose that no matter what though, much like Sonic and the Secret Rings as well, you can also perform the forms that have very, very well timed jumps and what have you, like jump dash specifically for that particular part right there. Ah, jeez, I keep on getting stuck by that little pesky spiky wall. I mean, what is this, like a Mark Speed section from Sonic 06 all over again? Whatever when Sonic has almost had a seizure or something, well, got hit by the forms that, unexpected boundary for the sake of the forms of the Mark Speed section in Sonic 06. Wow, I honestly have no idea why I somehow explained about that, but that's the way how I feel about that, I guess, I suppose. So, But yeah, this place is filled to the brim with a lot of lava-y stuff, and it's also reassuring about this too, is about the fact that, oh jeez, I was not expecting that particular lava decides to come out of the wall, and also we have to watch out for those spikes, much like in Sonic and the Secret Rings, specifically Night Palace level, so but I digress. And I suppose with those little blue fairies right there, aside from the fact that they act out as like jump pads on the rare occasions, but it also acts out as dash wind, which I'm not exactly sure how do I describe it exactly, but regardless to such, that was about the fact that thankfully we're nearly at the end of this stage. But this stage in particular is not too bad in my opinion, but there is that one particular level that honestly throws me off for, you know, in the past anyway, which I suppose that'll be a topic for a later time. So for now, we've got ourselves a nice 3-star run, so as a result, not too shabby for the most part. So, oh geez, we've got filled to the brim with these items here, which I don't suppose we can able to, you know, get them all, because, you know, with all the ID points, we have to carefully try to equip. But thankfully, though, we've got ourselves our nice jewelry right there, and in addition to a pickaxe, so, yeah, I suppose we are basically done here. And so much to the point, we can now take on the next boss, which appears to be Sir Percival, which, yeah, no matter what though, is about the fact I'm pretty sure that particular character looked a bit familiar to me, especially noticeable considering for the fact that, well, you'll find out soon enough.
I am Percival, Knight of the Round Table, servant of King Arthur. State your name and your master, sir.
I'm Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog. I have no master, except the wind that blows free.
Very well, Sonic, Knight of the Wind. Prepare for battle.
Bring it on!
And it looks like that Blaze the Cat, she did manage to play as Sir Percival after all, because after all, she has the ability to use her flames, so as a result though, yeah, you could get the idea about that familiar voice, since in Sonic Rush, and Sonic Rush Adventure, and etc etc. This fight is a little bit tougher compared to the forms of how it does it for Sir Lancelot and Sir Gawain to me though, but it's mainly because trying to get the 5-star ranking on this boss fight is a bit difficult, because like I said before, in order to do that, you cannot afford to get hit once, so as a result, yeah, she's ridiculously fast and straight to the point. Her attacks can be felt a bit unpredictable at times, but when you get the down of it though, she's actually not too bad. Assuming of course about the fact that, well, good luck for trying to get the 5-star ranking. So no matter what though, I've only got hits twice by the way, which I suppose it doesn't matter because I somehow got myself my 4-star ranking, which is not too shabby for the most part. But regardless of everything else though, it's about the fact that again, good luck for trying to get the 5-star ranking on that fight, because even then, she can be unpredictable at times. So, and what's also reassuring about this too is about the fact that each and every single boss fight, obviously though you start things off with 100 rings at the very least. So, that's always a nice little welcoming addition to it. So yeah, that pretty much does it for Sir Percival.
Well done, Sir Sonic.
Percival! Yikes! Whew! That was close.
Why? Why did you...
I guess you could say that Whim is my other master.
Save the hugs and kisses for later.
What? You jealous or something?
For a knave such as you? Ridiculous.
Enough of that knave stuff already.
Actually,
Yes?
Sonic the Hedgehog, you have mastered the code of chivalry. From this day forth, you shall be Sir Sonic, Knight of the Wind.
Merlina!
I saw all that transpired in my reflecting pool. I have no words to thank you for all you have done.
Yeah, but it's not over yet.
Sir Sonic is right. We must still defeat King Arthur.
The king is on an island known as Avalon. You have become a fine knight.
Ah, cut it out. Anyway, I guess I'll go end this thing then.
Good luck, Sir Sonic. I'll await you at Castle Camelot.
Oh, I did not notice that Molina now finally turned up since the very beginning of the game, but regardless of such though, we can now able to actually access to even more missions in the previous stages and the new stage we can able to go into, such as for instance, Faraway Avalon. So because of that, after all, we somehow collected 3 secret swords representing the 3 Knights of the Round Table, so this means we've only got one last thing to do. That's what it appears to be, of course, taking on the forms of King Arthur, but this time in a different location, in Faraway Avalon. So because of that though, because previously though it was about the fact that we've already fought him earlier in Misty Lake, despite the fact he's still immortal. So as a result though, now it's finally time to take on King Arthur once and for all, so we can able to actually save the day.
I'm Sonic the Hedgehog, Knight of the Wind. Let's settle this once and for all, King Arthur.
It seems your impersonation of a knight has improved somewhat.
I have you to thank for that.
Then let us have another look at that unsightly swordsmanship.
You're gonna be sorry you asked. This is it, old pal.
Indeed. Give it everything you have. Only then will you prevail.
Then bring it on, King Arthur!
Alright, here we go. Now, as far as what Sonic did tell me about this, is that back in the day, he seemed able to struggle with this boss fight at first glance on his first playthrough, but the more we play it though, I found this boss fight to be a lot easier than I was expecting. I mean, sure, it is a bit difficult when if you're first time playing for this fight, but regardless of such though, it's about the fact that we are once again gonna have to chase after him, but only this time, it's now an endless, instead of the forms of 3 stretch of roads. So yeah, as you can see, in order able to try to deal with King Arthur right here, we need to fill up our soul surge, and then once your soul surge has been full up, it's your chance to able to actually do some quick time events with the Wii Remote prop on screen. Now once you've done so for about a quick succession, then you would able to miraculously try to keep on slashing onto him. So, in order to able to fill up your soul surge is that you need to keep on attacking that particular dark red ball attack, because otherwise if you do it successfully, then you should able to fill up your gauge. And you have to be very careful of his attacks as well, ranging from a paralyzed electricity for some reason, as well as that particular sword little arm attack, which I rarely encountered, but that's mainly because I somehow managed to miraculously try to finish him off very quickly. Although, the only difficult part about this fight to me though is in the final stretch when it comes to quick time events, because you need to be absolute with that particular timing, because if you did way too early or way too late, then you have to try again basically when it comes to likely trying to catch up to him. So that'll be my only pro tip, just don't panic and just try to wait until when that particular Wii Remote prop decides to show up. So there we go, folks. That pretty much concludes the King Arthur boss fight for the second time, and hopefully for reals this time, because even then though, I miraculously managed to get myself my awesome 5-star award. So because of that though, without any issues, apart from getting paralyzed once, but I suppose getting paralyzed doesn't seem to really count as subtracting your score, but I suppose it really doesn't matter either way, because, well, straight to the point, we finally defeated King Arthur, so yeah, everything else checks out there, basically, so yeah.
I am immortal. You cannot defeat me.
Now, Sonic, the 3 sacred swords.
Got it!
How can this be?
So, since that we somehow defeated King Arthur for reals, apparently once we're done with that, the game just somehow ends. Well, I wouldn't say that, because technically the game itself wasn't even entirely over yet, because, well, I'm sure enough though, we'll find out more details about that until tomorrow, and possibly the next weekend as well. So because of that though, yeah, I got nothing else to add around here, aside from the fact that the theme song we're going to be hearing in this particular staff credit sequence is none other than Night of the Wind, performed by Crush 40, which, kind of think about it though, what's even amazing about the entire soundtrack when it comes to Sonic and the Black Knight, not only we can able to expect to see or hear not one, not two, but three, or I would say three most likely for its Crush 40 songs, because as far as I'm aware, they also sang the forms of Fight the Knight from the likes of whenever we try to fight King Arthur for the second and probably the final time as far as I'm aware. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell. Although there's also Through the Fire song, which as a result we did somehow fight against with the 3 Knights of the Round Table, which conveniently enough though we can able to actually hear Through the Fire, which that sounds also very awesome. So yeah, I will say though is about the fact that the entire soundtrack in Sonic and the Black Knight is a huge little bit of a step up to me though, compared to the forms of Sonic and the Secret Ring soundtrack in my eyes, just because of all the very unexpected vocal appearances when it comes to stage music as far as I'm aware, aside from High and Broken in Levitated Ruin level of what I've noticed. So yeah, because aside from all that stuff though, there's nothing else I can really talk about, aside from the fact that, like I said earlier, technically the game itself isn't even over yet, because I'm sure enough though is that much like Sonic and the Secret Rings, we might able to come across into not one, but 2 staff credit sequence every once in a while, despite the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I was about the fact in Sonic and the Secret Rings, for I've remembered, about the fact that I'm pretty sure that Mickey Mouse did somehow skip over the first staff credit sequence just before he able to dive into the final stretch of Sonic and the Secret Rings against with the forms of Eraser Gen after collecting all 7 of these 7 world rings as far as I'm aware. Whilst in here though, I'm pretty sure for the fact that once we deal with King Arthur, I think this pretty much concludes the first half of the forms of the entire story progression for Sonic and the Black Knight, because as far as I'm aware, that's like I said earlier, the story itself is technically not finished yet. So but yeah, I guess that's all I can really say about this. I would have liked able to explain more in terms of the forms of any other stuff that's been happening so far, but let's just say specifically until tomorrow, or if not, then we'll let Maxie will mention more about any of those aspects whenever he goes back on playing through Super Mario Party Jamboree. So because of that though, yeah, I had a lot of fun playing this so far, despite the fact that for whatever stupid reason, my Wii decided able to actually give me an error has occurred message every time whenever I managed to play this game on my spare own time. I'm not exactly sure why, despite my copy of the disc, it still looks in a pretty good condition, not the best condition mind you. I mean mind you, it does have a couple of those thumbprints, which I suppose that Maxie completely accidentally tried to able to create that. So, or perhaps even maybe because my system has gone a little bit aged well enough, I guess, when it comes to specifically my Black Wii, because I'm pretty sure enough that was about the fact that we almost had that particular Black Wii for 15 years, since technically 2010, for what I've noticed, after our first white Wii did somehow no longer read any of those game discs or anything else like that. Well, I'm sure enough that I still kept it for the sake of, you know, the Virtual Console games lineup, in addition to WiiWare stuff here and there as well. I mean, as much as I really want to fix that particular no longer plays discs as far as I'm aware, when it comes to not only Wii, but in addition to GameCube stuff as well, maybe I suppose I could do that in a later time, but not now though, just because at this point in time, still, I'm basically more excited for the sake of the forms of what September actually has to offer, especially because, well, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you guys excited to be able to see what September actually has in store for us? Because, well, generally speaking, I was about the fact that at the moment right now, there's nothing else coming out aside from, you know, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and in addition to Pac-Man World 2 Repack, which I'm still incredibly excited for it. But in terms of Nintendo titles though, there is nothing there. So because of that though, I suppose they'll try to save it up for something with a little bit more specialty when it comes to, you know, the Red Italian Plumber basically, aside from the fact that Japan already received Hello Mario, or should I say from the My Mario lineup, when it comes to Hello Mario application for Switch and smartphone devices, and even iPads as well. So, anyway, so with that being said, folks, we should probably end things off at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic and the Black Knight. Is that we're about to be continued the story with some interesting elements to it. So, either way though, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit more interesting to say the least. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.